Hey guys, today I'm talking about mosquitoes again. A few days ago I did a video on mosquito repellents and somebody in the comments had asked me to demonstrate that it works, and it does work. I'm wearing it right now, and I usually just keep it in this bottle right here. I do a little bit of shake and I keep it in my fridge so it goes on. It feels very good. It's on the cool side when I spray it on me. But currently I'm in the greenhouse with the doors open and I haven't had one mosquito bite. Normally, if I had the doors open and I wasn't wearing mosquito repellent, I would have 6, 7, 8 bites. This is the beginning of August and mosquitoes are everywhere in my yard. But I'm going to show you how to make not a repellent, but if you want to see how to make the repellent, I'll put the link right here. But I'm going to show you how to make a trap that will trap mosquitoes and collapse their population in your yard, and not only in your yard but in your neighbor's yard as well. So this works extremely well, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Now the first component of the trap, you're going to need a container like this. This is just a water jug that I bought from the grocery store. We have a lot of these around the greenhouse because I get my wife not to throw them away. So basically this portion, the main portion of the mosquito trap, is absolutely free to me. But if you don't have water jugs, you could use something like a milk jug, any type of plastic container like that. You just want to make sure it's something that you can put out in the weather. It can't be made of paper like a milk carton, but you want it to be made of plastic like this. So I'm going to bring you a little bit closer and show you the first step on getting it set up there. Now the first thing you're going to need is a really sharp razor blade because you want to cut a window into the front of your jug. Now this may be a little noisy because the plastic's going to be popping, so let me see if I can do this. But your window is going to be towards the top of the jug, so you want to cut a window across the face of it. And like I said, just be really careful because these razor blades can send you to the emergency room. Now I've cut the front of this out and maybe you can see it a little bit better there, and we've left the bottom half of the jug still intact. So we have an open face window here. The next step is going to be in the cap of your container, and you'll need a small drill for that. We're just going to take the drill and drill 2 holes. This is a little bit larger than a 1/16 size. All right, we have 2 holes there. Now for the cap of your bottle, you want to run a zip tie through it. I'm trying to make sure I'm on camera here. And you're going to bring it through the bottom. Pull it in like that. Almost completely down. Just leave a small gap like this at the bottom, small gap at the top. Take a pair of cutters and cut that off. Now if you don't have zip ties, you could also use a piece of string, which may not last as long. It's going to weather over time and break on you. But you could use some metal. I have some of this copper wiring. You could use that as well. But I just prefer zip ties. They last the longest and they give me the least amount of trouble there. Now the trick with mosquitoes is you want to have some attractants attracting them to your trap. Naturally, when you're outside, you're putting off a certain odor, you're putting off heat, and you're putting off CO2. And that's some of the things that I'm going to talk about using as baits to bring it to your trap. Once they're in your trap, they'll never know, but they're not going to be able to reproduce and it will collapse the population. But anyways, this is the basic structure of our trap. The reason we have this cap on here is we want to be able to hang it either from a tree limb, from a post, a fence, wherever we have outside. One of the most important things is you don't want to hang these close to your gathering places like your porch where you have outdoor furniture. You want to pull the mosquitoes away from you, but you don't want it so far away that the mosquitoes bypass it, and you're going to need to create a perimeter of these traps. So you might end up doing anywhere from 8 to 10 traps depending on how big your outdoor area is. For my area, I actually have 10 of these traps strategically placed away from the area where I most often sit, and I've noticed the insect population has collapsed inside of that perimeter. Now another important thing to do is you want to make a drainage hole right below where you have the base of your window on the front of your trap. So you want to go maybe 1/2 inch below that And on the back of your jug, you're going to have to kind of guesstimate this, but you're going to punch a hole in the back. May not be easy, but this is going to be a drain hole that's going to keep the water from overflowing the front, because you want to keep the water that's currently in there at a specific level where it's not letting out some of our secret ingredients there. So just remember, that's another important thing, is you need a drainage hole in the back of your jug. Now the next thing I want to talk about is ways to attract the mosquitoes to your trap. Now these little things you can buy on Amazon or eBay or at a garden center, but basically I just use these to put over my persimmons and other fruit to protect them from having them being attacked by insects. But what we're going to do is, there's a loop there. We're going to make this loop much, much smaller so we can hang it from the top of our trap. We want it to be close to the top inside and not necessarily sitting in the water, so we can attach it to the base of our zip tie. And what we're going to put in here is we're going to put in, and this is strange, but it is, I was reading an article months ago about Limburger cheese, smelly cheeses, blue cheese, and that cheese, believe it or not, replicates the smell of human odors. Our body odors, when they become really bad, if you've ever been behind somebody in the grocery store and they had bad BO, it kind of smells like really stinky cheese. So that's what one of the things you're going to use to attract them to your trap. But that's not what kills them, or that's not what causes the population to collapse. We're just talking about drawing them to your trap. I'll tell you the second thing you can do. So the next thing that's going to attract mosquitoes to you when you're outdoors is the CO2 you're breathing out. And you're going to create a trap that generates CO2. Now this water has been sitting in a container and it's got a little bit of algae growing in it. And so that's another important thing, is to use really water that really has an algae growth in it. And so what you want to do is you want to fill it to just below where you create your drainage hole. You might have a little bit of rain blow into it, so it'll automatically drain out and you won't have it going out the front. But the way you're going to create the CO2 is you're going to create a chemical reaction with yeast and sugar. So you're going to take, for this size trap, you're going to take a 1/4 cup of sugar. Then you can use molasses, you can use sugar, you could probably use honey. But what we're doing is we're going to create the chemical reaction with just ordinary yeast. You don't have to do anything expensive. I'm using dry yeast. And you probably want to shake this up or stir it. I've got my paint stick around here. On this, you're going to use, and if I can find my spoon here, we're going to use 1 tablespoon of dry yeast. And this is the maintenance part of it. You may have to do this about 1 to every 2 weeks to keep generating this. It's not going to generate the CO2 for a long time, but you're wanting, as you walk away from it overnight, it's pulling the mosquitoes in and it draws them into the trap. So you want to stir it up quite well. I've got a paint stick that I use as a stir, but I've misplaced it somewhere. But that is the CO2 portion of the trap. So you have the smell, then you have the CO2, and I'm going to talk about a couple of other things you can do. Now, another thing you can use, if you don't want to use the cheese, because it's kind of a gross thing to think about and having that smell, you may not like it, but just a pillowcase, draping it below, around, or on a limb above it. The pillowcase will bring mosquitoes in just from the smell. And remember, it can't be washed, it needs to be used. So if you've got a pillowcase that you've been using for a while that's not clean, that would be another thing. And another thing is dark colors. If the pillowcase is white, it's going to be less likely to attract mosquitoes than if the pillowcase was a dark red or black. So that's another thing. Use pillowcases. I know you probably don't want to get rid of your pillowcase, but if you're planning on buying some new ones, don't throw these away. You can use them, and that smell will last for maybe a 30-day period. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to collapse that population in a lot of different ways by drawing them to these traps. Now, I remember in the early 80s, I guess it was around 83, 84, the mosquito traps became extremely popular. And when my dad saw it, he was a guy who could do anything. He actually made a electric mosquito trap from some fencing, and he was really good with electricity, I'll put it that way. But he made his own bug zapper, or whatever you want to call those things now. But it worked very well, but then I found out later that wasn't attracting mosquitoes, that was attracting moths and gnats and things like that. Mosquitoes aren't attracted to UV light, but they are attracted to blue light. So if you have a blue light bulb, or if you want to order one from Amazon, put it in the area and that will draw them in as well. You don't want to put it near your seating area again. You want to draw them away from that. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that produce very expensive traps, anywhere from $20, $30, $40, $50 up to thousands of dollars, which is really outrageous for something you can make on your own. But in addition to the traps they sell, they have a small lure packet. It's about this big, a little bit bigger than a postage stamp, and it mimics the smell of human beings. You can buy them online. I'll put a link in the description if you want to buy one. But it is a specific type of trap that will draw the mosquitoes to those manufactured expensive traps, but you can also use it in one of these. Now, there's a brand of mosquito trap I had read about, and they recommend putting their trap anywhere from 3 to 6 feet. I would recommend a little bit closer to the 6-foot side so you can keep it away from any pets. The secret ingredient I have yet to add to our trap is perfectly safe for pets, but you don't want your pet jumping up on this, knocking it over. Now, if you think you might have a problem with birds or squirrels, you can take some fruit and tree netting and wrap it around the front. The mosquitoes can easily get through it, and you can zip tie it like that, and they'll still be able to get in there, but no birds or squirrels can get in. I have not found that to be a problem with my traps, even though they're spread out all over the yard and have tons of birds and squirrels. But anyways, just a fruit netting like this, I'll put a link to some of it down below. I have a lot of persimmons and things like that that I use on to keep the squirrels from eating them. But you can use something like this to wrap in your trap, and the mosquitoes easily fly through something like that. So just remember that you want to keep it at about 3 to 6 feet, and I prefer a little bit closer to the 6-foot side. Now, about optimal placement, you don't want to put this close to your decking area or sitting area. You want it ideally, and I did research on all the different companies, they recommend anywhere from 20 to 40 feet away from your seating area. So you'll kind of create that perimeter, like I said, 20 to 40 feet, and that will draw them away. You don't want to be drawing mosquitoes into the area because they may bypass the trap and go directly for the people in the seating area. Now, the next question a lot of people are probably going to ask is, when do you start doing this? Well, the springtime is going to be the optimal time. Obviously, we're at the end of the season, but this is something I should have done earlier. But again, I always have so many things going on. But when the temperatures in your area consistently stay above 45 degrees as the low nighttime temperature, that's when you start putting out these traps and doing the yeast trick, and just doing this about once every 3 to 4 weeks, about refilling the yeast to draw them in so you can start collapsing that population before it explodes. It's a lot easier to start early than to try to cut it off once they've reach their maximum population. Now, how often you're going to refill it with the sugar and yeast mixture is going to depend on how big your insect population gets. If you're in a suburban area where you don't have a massive population, it may be every 3 to 4 weeks. But if you're in a heavily wooded area like I am, it could be as much as once a week. But you don't have to take it down or anything. You just take your mixture, take 1/4 of a cup of the sugar and 1 teaspoon of the yeast, and just mix it together. It won't start the activation process until it hits the water, and then that's when it will start the carbon dioxide process over. So like I said, it all depends on how bad your mosquito problem is. It could be once a week until the middle of summer, until you notice the population is collapsing. And this is an every year thing, because the thing about mosquitoes, they are going to survive no matter what. Sometimes our winters get down to the single digits, and every year the mosquitoes are back just as bad as they were the year before. So they can survive extreme conditions. Now you're probably thinking, well, yeast in water is not going to kill mosquitoes, just going to allow them to come in, lay their eggs, and start the breeding cycle over again. And that's where this product comes in, mosquito dunks or the mosquito bits. I prefer the mosquito bits. I'll put links to both of these in the description. I like just putting a teaspoon into the mixture. The mosquito dunks are a little bit large. If you're going to go something like a size of a bucket, then you would maybe break one of these into 4. So you can get these, I don't know, around $10. But like I say, I always opt for this whenever I can get these at Walmart or whatever store. But you're going to take 1 teaspoon in the beginning, once you have the mixture set up, and put 1 teaspoon into your water and allow that to start working. The way it works is it stops that breeding cycle. It stops the larvae from becoming adult mosquitoes that are going to bite you. So this is the secret ingredient to making this work, and it's not that expensive, especially when you're only using a teaspoon at a time. Maybe 3, 4, 5, or even maybe if you have a long summer season, maybe 6 times a summer. And depending on your yard size, if you have a small yard, you may be only having 4 or 5 traps to deal with, but it really works, and I have noticed a huge drop in my mosquito population. I'm going to show you how to set this up outdoors right outside the greenhouse. Now, my last video about the mosquito repellent spray, a lot of people made the comment that they were mosquito magnets. And that's true of a lot of people. And there's a very simple reason that that might be. Of course, everybody's going to be bitten by mosquitoes. But if you have a severe vitamin B deficiency, they say that mosquitoes will be a lot more likely to attack you in a group of people. So let's head out to the garden. I'll show you exactly how to set this up. Now, wherever you decide to put this, the main thing is to remember if you have tornadic weather a lot or you have really gusty areas, you may want to use multiple zip ties to secure it a little bit better than I have it. But this right here will be here all summer. I left it here last year and it worked great. So that's one of the things that you just want to make sure that you create that perimeter around the areas, whether you're working in your garden or you're sitting on your back porch. You want to create that perimeter that pulls them away from you. So tree branches, the sides of trees, structures like this, the sides of houses as long as it's away from your seating area is great places to put it because it's drawing them out of the area and it will collapse that population. So guys, if you have a question about this video or any of my previous videos, please subscribe publicly first. I always make a point to answer any question to the best of my ability and the most honest way I can answer it. If you're a public subscriber, I get tons and tons of questions, but I just can't answer every one. I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day going through all the questions. However, I do appreciate the comments and I really appreciate the likes, but I just need you to subscribe first and then leave your comment and I'll get back to you as best and honestly as I can. So guys, I really appreciate you watching and have a great day.